Sapien.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Sapien podcast. I, as usual, am extremely excited to be here today. Today, my guest is Mr. Brian Sanders.
Yeah, I'm in the other seat now.
So we wanted to do this special episode. Brian just got back from Africa. He had, 3 weeks in Africa?
Almost
3 weeks in Africa. And me and Brian, we talk every day when he's here. And when he got back just about a week ago, we basically said we're not going to talk to each other so that we can have this conversation on air and share with everyone the experience. I'm so excited to learn about it. Brian, tell us where you went and in 2 sentences.
I'll do, the high level is we went to Tanzania and Uganda. We wanted to study native living cultures that still ate and lived as close as they can to how they used to live, right? And Weston Price, which we bring up in every episode, so there, drink.
Boom.
No, he did this 100 years ago, and so we kind of wanted to continue that on a little bit and see what we could find, and if there was still people that were uncontacted, which there aren't, are untouched from the modern.
There's not, right?
Yeah, there's definitely not.
And I actually followed your social and I saw some really interesting stuff about what you guys observed there. And I want to ask you about it. But you went with sort of an expert in this field. Tell me about her.
Yeah, Mary Ruddick. So I did a double episode with her about, I don't know, maybe it was a year ago on Peak Human. She's a genius. I cemented that on this trip by just spending time with her. We'd go on these 10-hour drives, throughout the country and just talk to her. And she'd be like, boom, boom. This is how I did this. I cured cancer in this person. We reversed schizophrenia. We did this. She just knows how to do anything, it seems like, with diet and lifestyle. So she's amazing.
And she's been to Africa before and sort of showed you the ropes, right?
Yeah. And she lived there for the past year. She was in Zimbabwe. She's gone to Ikaria. She's like kind of doing the blue zones and debunking them and doing the same Weston Price type thing where she just goes to the different cultures, studies them, videos, and
amazing.
Yeah.
And so you went there. Okay, so in all honesty, I thought you were crazy. Brian tells me he's going to go to Africa in the middle of the pandemic, and I'm like, yeah, good job, buddy. But it sounds like this trip went really well. Who did you visit? You saw 4 tribes there, right?
Yeah, 4. Well, we had 3 main ones and then a couple sort of smaller ones. It was surprisingly not too hard. We traveled, we got there, we did our COVID tests, and it was fine. We arrived in Tanzania, and COVID doesn't exist there. It's very interesting. It just, no one, they were just like, I don't know.
Because they don't have news media, right?
We don't have news. Yeah, we don't have masks. We don't have media. We weren't told to be scared and stay home. And so nothing happened there. I mean, I'm sure something happened, but it wasn't apparent. We visited hospitals and COVID clinics empty. It wasn't like, oh, they're just, disregarding it.
Right.
It was just not a problem.
Yeah.
So they're also, a lot healthier. They actually, in general, looked pretty healthy. They eat mostly whole foods because that's what they can afford. And they weren't very obese, really. And so, maybe that has something to do with it. These healthy people.
I think there's a lot of factors. They also spend time outside. And so
I didn't answer the second part of your question.
Yes.
Yeah, so in Tanzania, we couldn't get into Kenya, which were some of the Maasai are and some other ones, but there's Maasai in Tanzania, and then there's Hadza in Tanzania. There's a place called Lake Eyasi where there's dozens and maybe even 100 different tribes that live all in this area. It's kind of a little refuge kind of area where it's not, the government lets them kind of live. But part of the bigger story is a lot of these governments are pushing them off their land, especially in Uganda, which we can get to later.
So similar to like our Native American population.
Yeah, it's the same thing. And then so once they have less resources, then they rely more on modern foods.
So you said that they're kind of untouched. Describe for me, are we talking huts? No running water, no electricity. Are these, what is the environment? Like your first try.
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like?
I mean, absolutely none of that stuff.
None of it.
None of that stuff. There are some. I mean, when we stayed with the Maasai, we stayed in there's a Maasai guy. He's like the director of this, and he's super legit Maasai. He's kind of more westernized, and he's trying to put the schools together. He's organizing things, and so yeah, they where we stayed, there was solar panels and a toilet in the room. But what we went into other people's hut, and there was not. It was a mud hut. I mean, that was it. Like this.
How come you didn't stay in the mud hut?
I mean, we did stay in the mud hut. Ours was it's made of dung and mud and straw, but just ours was bigger, and it had a solar panel and a toilet. You know what I mean? So it was, and a nice bed. Like this was not what they lived in. So we went, and one day we went with Kimaki, was a sort of younger guy that was one of our guides, and he lived in there's all these Maasai villages around us. So he would just walk like 5 kilometers every day to come with us. We were basically the only people at this Maasai lodge.
I was going to ask, any other tourists?
No, there's one girl. I don't know where she was from, but there was a single other person there. And so all the Maasai people would come and meet up with us and just do activities with us. And
they're used to this sort of thing?
Yeah, well, in this little area. This is just, so that's why they're living how they live, but then 10 of them would walk up. Williams was the main organizer, and Williams owns this place, and he recruited 10 Maasai people that were like, some of them spoke a little English, or maybe they, jumped really high. They do a lot of jumping dances and ceremonies. Cool. Anyway, and they'd walk up and join us for the day, and so they took us on a little hike to a neighboring little hut, and where they had goats and cows, and they showed us their life, and we, it was just this family, and we got to see like how this family lived, and it was kind of like, it seemed like a movie set, and then these people would just go off and go to their real home. But I was like, no, this is where they live. And I went in the hut, and it had 2 sides. So the parents had one side, and it was, like 6 feet by 6 feet, just this tiny, like nothing. And they just had sticks that made a cot, and then a cowhide. And so they just slept on sticks, like, raised a foot off the ground on a cowhide, and that's it. And then there was 5 kids, and the other side, a 6 foot by 6. This is one room, but it's 6 foot by 6 foot, tiny little thing. And all 5 kids slept on the one cot together, just in a pile. And then they have their little hut, which is their kitchen. And then they have this little hut that's, I forget, like the bathroom, where they keep a cow in it or something. And
it's 2 very different things.
And that's it. Yeah. And that's it. And then they just live, and they make their porridge. It's called ugali. It's like what they live off of.
So is that like a root vegetable or grain?
No, so now it used to be made of sorghum or millet traditionally, and now it's maize. So now the corn has come in, and the problem is in South America they use maize for thousands and tens of thousands of years, but they had this 5-step process to detoxify it. This is like Bill Schindler stuff, right?
Right, like fermentation and making sure
nixtamalization
drops the glycemic index, makes it
get the phytic acid out. All
natural processing.
Processing, and it's about soaking or fermenting or leaving it out, or nixtamalizing is the term.
Nixtamalizing?
Nixt, N-I-X-T, nixtamalizing. You got to look it up. So that process didn't make it to Africa or other countries around the world. South America figured it out, and they're doing okay. They did fine on it. Now, these people, it seems like this is becoming a problem because it's not detoxified. It's not as good.
Is this corn coming from like industrial farms, or
no?
Is this corn?
No, I mean they're growing it. They just grow. This is
so they're growing their own.
They're growing their own food, and it's not like Monsanto. So I mean, I'm not saying it's all bad, but it's just not detoxified. They just grind it, they dry it, grind it, and then put it in water for porridge. And
they're vegans, right? So they just eat that, and they're not trying to eat any animal food. Is that the message?
No, that's funny. Yeah, it's funny. We kind of asked people about that, and they're like couldn't understand why anyone would not get animal food. Their whole life revolves around how much animal food they can acquire, right? So it's like that's their status, wealth status. It's their nutrition, everything about their life is around how many animal foods can we get? Can we afford to kill this cow or goat and eat it? Or can we get milk?
Right. So they're consuming the corn product because they can't slaughter an animal every day and maintain that sort of volume of
Yeah, yeah.
animal food.
Oh, it's impossible. So I learned that a lot of people have a lot of animals, but yeah, you can't slaughter them a lot because that you need them for other purposes
and you don't have refrigeration, right?
you never. So that's why they rely on the blood and the milk, right? So that's a sustainable, like, returning resource, right?
How is that? Because if you're bleeding, the animal isn't it dead, or they have
No. It's just like giving blood. So humans give blood. It's like 1 pint of blood, and you can do it once every 2 months, 2 months,
that
3 months,
depends.
whatever it is. So it's the same thing with the cows. So they give maybe 3 pints of blood, 4 pints, whatever it is. It's relative to their size.
Exactly.
And then they rotate them so they don't do the same cow every time.
And that's every day they're consuming blood
Well,
and milk?
Depends. So this little group, this little family was not doing that. These people were relying on the maize porridge, and then they'd put milk in it. So it's just water, maize, and then you add milk to it. So you get some nutrition from the milk.
But this is cows or goats?
Either.
They have both?
Yeah. Most people have both. And
they're grass-fed, right?
oh yeah, they're out there. So most people, their daily life, people are asking about their daily life. I mean, really, it's just milling around with cows. You just seriously just walk around with cows, and then you come home. That's what you do all day.
Are they farming anything other than corn?
Some people are. We saw some pumpkin. They're farming pumpkin, and they eat the leaves. Yeah, there's some other stuff, but not much.
So how often are these? Sorry, I'm stuck on this because it's interesting to kind of envision what like a week in these people's lives.
Yeah.
Are. So they're eating this porridge. They're adding milk to it for their healthy fat and protein. How often are they consuming blood or the actual flesh?
Okay, we'll move away from this little family
Okay.
because this little family, they had nothing.
So they were really
And they survived on like one meal. So they have a breakfast of porridge and milk. Then they'd go off. Some of the members of the family would go off all day and then come home and then eat another version of that, or maybe some more. Hopefully they got some eggs or something. But then the bigger clans of Maasai people, the men would get blood and milk every day. Okay, so this is the interesting part. So in a week, they had this belief that you shouldn't drink blood and eat meat on the same day.
Mm-hmm.
So what they do is they'd go 3 days with just blood and milk. And it's kind of like a two meal a day thing where you have a big bunch of it in the morning, you go off, and then you have it later. And then they'd slaughter a goat and then eat, just like feast on goat all day. And then they'd go back to the blood and the meat, the blood and the milk.
And they'd share the goat amongst everyone, use
Yes.
every little bit of it.
Absolutely.
Did
no
they actually
detail.
split up the organs the way we imagine them to split up the organs?
So what we did, so they slaughtered a goat for us the first day. So they gathered it, they slit its neck, bled it into a metal container, and then just started immediately drinking it and passing it around. So we drank it. It
How
was
was that?
still warm. It was a little intense. It was good. It was fine. It wasn't really minerally. It didn't taste like really irony. It tasted more mild than I thought. And so they passed it around. The main guy even just sucked on the neck and started drinking it.
Like vampire stuff.
Yeah.
Oh.
He got it all out. And then they just put it on a rock or something and started, tearing it open. They started eating the liver. So they would just get the liver raw. The knife was just covered in guts, and they
You get
just
to try that?
Oh yeah.
How was the raw liver?
That was fine. It was fine. There's a crazy story about the raw liver though. I thought there was some white stuff. I just ate it, like it happened really quickly. And then Mary just ate it really quickly. Then later she's told us, like way later, she's like, by the way, guys, there was worms in the liver. She's like, there was worms in it. And we're like, why didn't you tell us? And she's like, I don't know. It happened so fast. She's like, they were fine. So, they were eating it. So, and it turns out, I think they have a root that they make a stew out of that's sort of an anti-parasitic. Or even, so they I'll finish saying how they did it all. So they, take all the guts out. They got the organ meats and they put all the guts, including the colon, intestine, the insides of the colon, the rectum, everything in a pot and boil that for a few hours.
They didn't wash out the poopies?
No.
Okay.
They were floating around.
Oh, boy.
I saw all of it in the pot. And meanwhile, they cut it all up, the meat, and put it on sticks and dry it out by the fire and kind of smoke it, cook it near the fire. So this whole thing is like 2-3 hours. And the soup was at the very end, and it was, well, they drained out all the stuff. So they put the root in, so it's this peppery root. So I think that's part of this anti-parasitic type thing that would help. And then maybe just eating all the guts and all that weird stuff helps with the worms. I don't know what it does. Mary thought it helped them, right? They kept talking about these medicinal properties of it. But the one surprising part is they actually threw away the organs
After boiling them down.
Yeah, so they eat the organs raw. I'm not saying they threw away all the organs. They threw away like kind of like the bad organs. I don't know what they kept because we ate a lot of it.
Probably like liver, kidneys.
So we ate the liver and kidney raw. Then
thymus.
we didn't we didn't get that detailed with it all. Then they cook some of it, and then like I guess just the less desirable organs and just like the real guts go in the soup, and then they throw away the guts, which makes sense.
Extract the nutrients. And
Yeah. So then you had this really dense soup that seriously just tasted like diarrhea. Like I took a small sip and I was done.
Are they adding salt?
No salt. So the Maasai are very proud of not using salt or wanting salt. Same thing with the Hadza. Like these guys, they're just not into it. And I think it has something to do with, well, for one, they get enough minerals and stuff from blood and eating the whole animal.
Yeah.
And also they don't drink a lot of water. So maybe there's this kind of thing where if you don't drink a lot of water, you don't have a lot of salt, your body kind of down regulates that whole system.
As you guys are eating all these organs and stuff, I would imagine that's a special occasion because you guys are visiting, but are they sharing generally with, the kiddos? And is there like a hierarchy of distribution of this flesh?
So this was just with the Maasai and there was just the men were just there, our guy,
Yeah.
But with the Hadza, they do share with everyone. The men and the women stay separate, right? So they're always just cruising separately, doing their thing. They're not in the same area. So that's with both Hadza.
So they have different roles.
Yeah. But then they said when we're not there, they do share with the women. It just seems like the women just get a little less. But yes, they do cut it up and, everyone gets a piece kind of thing with the liver. But it's like whoever's around during the butchering is when you get it.
Is it ceremonial?
It's no.
Or is it just day to day?
You just do it. It's just, this is part of life. Like we got this animal, we're going to eat it and we're going to move on. And
just drink the poopy broth.
The poop soup, yeah. So
that's wild.
Yeah, that was the Maasai though. So it's interesting. The Maasai kind of look down on the Hadza for eating bushmeat, right? For eating the Maasai are like we eat cows and we eat goats. We're above the people who go out and kill. Like if it sounds like the Maasai, they wouldn't. If they just saw an animal, they wouldn't go try to kill it like a wild animal. It's like no, that's not for us. But that's also why they get along because the Hadza have they're very different.
So that's not quite as ancestral as we talk about in the sense that they're not wild hunting. They're still sort of curating their animal products.
Yeah, the Maasai, it's great because they're very self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Everything works, and they're actually way healthier than the Hadza. We're trying to figure out all the reasons why they live so much longer. They're taller. They're stronger. They're a way different kind of people than the Hadza.
So first you went to the Maasai. So what we're talking about is the Maasai village in Tanzania.
Yeah.
And then, so you spent a few days with them and then you moved on to visit the Hadza also in Tanzania? Or?
Yes. So this Maasai was actually not Lake Eyasi, the one I mentioned earlier. So we went to a different area, saw the Maasai, spent like 3 days there, then went completely across the country to Lake Eyasi and visited the Hadza.
And so what was different there? What is that where you guys saw the schools?
No, the Maasai. We saw the schools in the Maasai. Oh, I should talk about that.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up.
So I mentioned the guy Williams was like the director of this, and he was the one organizing the schools. And they had these buildings, and we saw 3 classrooms full of kids, and he showed us their food shed and their kitchen, and it was very sad. Like they opened this door, and in this concrete room in the corner was 3 sacks of sugar, 5 jugs of vegetable oil, and a trash can full of maize flour.
And they're not growing sugar, vegetable oil, and maize flour on their land, are they?
No. So the maize flour is like from down the street. They have their things, and then the vegetable oil and the sugar, they just get them from the town, and
So
this
this
is
is
all they had.
industrially sourced.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This
The
was like
bottles, the
packaged.
pictures I saw, it looks like jugs of canola
Yeah, it was like
oil.
these yellow canola balls, and this is what they had to eat for the day at the
The
schools.
kiddos.
Yeah, and the schools were teaching them that this is healthy. Like you need to, eat the corn. This is like our staple food, and all this type of stuff. When we talked to the elder Maasai, he was very skeptical of these modern foods. Like he was putting together. He's not a nutrition scientist. These guys have, they're not thinking about all the stuff that we're here talking about, but they know. These older guys like, hey, my dad lived till 110. He went between 110 when. Oh no, yeah, it was like 100 to 110, right? They don't keep track of the ages. He's like, we are healthier. The older generations are strong. These new foods come in. The younger people, they're getting more disease. They're not as healthy.
Are you noticing heavier, just more sickly looking younger people in that?
So this is another thing I was trying to figure out because it was kind of all over the place. But then I figured out the pattern. The pattern is when you're more malnourished, the youngest people have the most problems, right? So the youngest classroom that we visited, when they were only getting the sugar, flour, oil, and maybe weren't getting enough milk, they had signs of a little bit going on. Maybe a little autism, maybe a little malnourishment, like runny noses, just failure to thrive a little bit. But then all the adults looked fine, right? They were getting their, yeah. But then in Uganda, when you see everyone under 45 was fine. So there wasn't the malnourishment, right? People were getting enough animal foods.
Right.
But then the people at 45, we saw a lot of these women in this market. We walked around and we're trying to secretly film all this. And they were gigantic. And they had all these cooking oils. So my idea is that, well, we're talking about different countries even, but
Uganda, it's a good comparison.
But Uganda, relies on starches and either bananas and different starches and animal foods. And when you add the cooking oils to that, then it catches up to you. So there's nutrient deficiencies happen quickly when you're young, and then seed oils come in, and then it catches up to you later, and you get fat.
And this is like the core of my belief when I'm dealing with metabolic disease and I'm dealing with these chronic issues. Sometimes not even metabolic disease, autoimmune pathologies, people with like terrible allergies, people that just can't find their way, people that are taking supplements and their vitamin levels still inappropriate. And we've talked about this before. I really think that as bad as the processed grains are, the sugars, as bad as they cause metabolic disease, in America, we still consume so much food that you ultimately are not malnutritioned. I mean, ultimately, like everything's fortified. They still eat some meat, even if you're eating weird vegan products, they've got protein and they figured it out. What we can't fake is the real fats, right? And when you replace real healthy animal fats or fruit oils with these industrial seed oils, it's this super insidious, like really slow burning process that causes pathology that's not obvious. It's just, you can't just get a microscope and do a tissue and be like, oh, look, there's the problem. Or like, let's check an insulin level and like, there's the problem. It's so much more insidious. It's so much more like intracellular decay and the destruction of membranes that are essential for immune function, like the gut-brain membrane and the blood-brain membrane and the central nervous system's connection. And so, this idea that the vegetable oils, the seed oils are just destroying us from the inside out, and it doesn't present until the 30s, 40s, 50s. This is, I think, a bigger challenge to educate people on, and even people in our low-carb sort of carnivore, whatever you want to call it, our community of people that are ancestral thinking, we are a little bit still too obsessed with carbs versus fat or animal food versus plant food. I think the real like red herring or the real like thing that we need to all focus on is how destructive fake, for lack of a better word, fake oils are to our body, and really in irreversible ways. Once I believe that we're going to find out with the gut microbiome and the gut membrane and the gut's relationship with immunology, that if you raise people for decades and decades and decades on these industrial oils, I don't know that you can reverse it fully. Like, you can help people heal, but I don't know that you can replace all of those weird oils. And eventually we're going to figure out that our lipid membranes are being replaced with these bizarre forms of fat that don't work right.
It's scary, and I can see why we didn't catch it, really. You try to do studies, and you're like, oh, in the short term, it lowered LDL to use this. And we're like, well, LDL's not the problem, maybe. So, yeah, it's scary that we aren't seeing it, and it takes so long to develop. But I think it's very apparent from Uganda specifically, because they ate a lot of carbs, right?
Before, right? Yes.
Throughout, but they're all fine. So they ate a lot of carbs before for centuries, and they still eat a lot of carbs now. And everyone looked pretty healthy. But then you add the cooking oils in, and you see in the markets, they have all these bottles. They're in like Gatorade bottles, and they're just pouring them out. They're frying the potatoes in them.
Using them very liberally.
Oh yeah, they're just pouring it everywhere. Chapati is like kind of like their pita bread, like tortilla type stuff. They're just dumping the cooking oil on it. And it's happening. It's coming in. Like, what else? These people did not have junk food. So that was interesting too. In Uganda, specifically, it's one of the poor nations out there. Like, they don't have money for even packaged food, like treats. There were no snacks and treats. You go to any market in the world, and everywhere is
some kind of little
treats, snacks, and this, or like little churro type things. Or they didn't have that. They were like, we have fruits and bananas and starches, and that's it.
And what tribe is in Uganda?
So the Pygmies. So the Batwa. It's called the Batwa.
Batwa?
Batwa. So that they're the Pygmies, right?
So they're little?
They were. So they're mixing into the other population, so they're getting taller. But yeah, some of them are very short, and they're the ones pushed out of the forest. So they lived. It's called the Bwindi impenetrable forest. So this is where the mountain gorillas live. So we trekked in to see the mountain gorillas, which is crazy because we got to see them up close. We were like a few feet away from these.
I saw the picture, and I was
giant gorillas
for you.
It was crazy.
So everyone should know that Brian was documenting as much as he could with an effort to add to the Food Lies film a really, real life, modern day picture of, the concepts that we were talking about. And I commend you for doing that, Brian. I think that was very brave, and I think it's going to make the film even more powerful than it's already going to be.
Very huge for the film. This is going to be a huge piece. It's kind of going to be our opening and our closing, and we're talking about evolution and the Weston Price story. It's going to be instrumental to it. And
so back to these pygmies, because we're going through your tribes, and I'm just so fascinated. So what kind of, are these, so obviously they're in a part of the world where they're eating a lot of fruit. They have access to fruit. Are they also high animal foods, or how does that part of their diet look?
So this was crazy. This is just so Weston Price all over again. So we visited this group. So they're on the edge of the forest. They're pushed out, and they live in this little village with some other tribe. And we got to go with the actual pygmies. This is like the remaining people, and
that still live in the forest.
Yeah, well, not really. They're like in the city. They have like this. They're in the village, sorry, not a city. And then they have this little like halfway, like 10 feet into the forest.
Whatever's left.
Yeah, and it's...
Why did they get pushed out? Foresting or?
Well, it's for money. It's always about government and money. And so it's also to protect the gorillas. But these guys don't hunt gorillas anyway. But it's like they realized that they could charge tourists hundreds and hundreds of dollars to visit the gorillas. Mm-hmm. So it's like, we're going to save the gorillas, and all you people have to go. So now they can't get animal food. So this is a story. The woman, the matriarch, everyone said that, we went with a guide who grew up with them. He lives there. He speaks the language fluently, and he knows them well. And she's like, this woman is about 120 years old. So she was moving, like she was dancing. She was there. She's like, this is her daughter. Her daughter's about 90 years old, who also was moving, dancing, these people don't have. These are the people that actually grew up in the forest
Was
on
that
animal
picture
foods.
that you posted of like
Six
six
generations.
generations? Cool.
Yes.
Cool.
So they were dancing. I didn't post all these videos and all this stuff. We'll save some of it for the film. But the 120-year-old lady was still dancing, still moving. Like she talked about growing up in the forest. She said, I could get animal foods 3 times a day. Now, sometimes we get animal foods 2 times a year. We get meat on Christmas and Easter, and otherwise they can get some milk. You know, they're not vegan. Like they're getting milk, they're getting eggs, but they get meat maybe twice a year. So it's a huge change. So she used to get it 3 times a day, 120, no arthritis, none of that stuff, just moving around. Daughter 90 something. Then they had the grandson was 40s, 50s, but he was the youngest of her. So we didn't have like the direct line, right? There was she had many kids, and many of them weren't there. And it went down to, the 6th generation, like a baby.
Mm-hmm. And what did you notice? Was there a noticeable decline in health?
Well, yes. And she talked about it. It wasn't just us
was
making observations. She was saying we used to, they're talking about we used to eat all natural foods. We'd get them from the forest with the animals and some of the fruits or whatever. And now people are eating just maize and all this other stuff, and they're not living as long. They're not as healthy. And it's kind of that linear decline. Like you really see that linear decline in the youngest generation. We were around the village, and they were eating corn stalks for breakfast. Like not just the corn. I thought the corn was bad, but they didn't even have the corn. Like we just saw these kids, and they have their big machetes. I actually bought one of them off them and brought it home. I made it through.
Bring that back?
Yeah, I made it through all the airports and everything. Giant machete. It was just like the most ridiculous machete that was just okay.
That's awesome.
So they're chopping the corn stalk, and they just stalk. There's no nutrition in it. They open it up, they peel off the fibers outside, and just are chewing on the pulp and then spitting it out. And that's sometimes what they'd eat for breakfast. So you could see it in the youngest, and the youngest ones, a lot of protruding bellies. It's the first time we saw
Protein malnutrition.
That's what I thought. That's I think in like other these people I think had worms. So we talked to a local pharmacist there, and our guy, the translator, was saying that it's worms that causes, and I think the liver swells up and all this stuff. And so they don't really understand how to treat it that well. They try to treat it, but then they keep coming back. But it's also a sign of malnutrition where you can't, because the older people maybe are eating the same things, but they can't fight off the worms. I mean, this is a common theme too, is the older generations are just more robust, right? That's the whole thing.
They're more
resilient.
resilient.
We're talking about immune system, this whole COVID thing. It's like these people, they don't get malaria. They don't get all these things. And as the generations go down and down, they're more susceptible to all these.
You know, it just makes me think about how right now there's such a huge push to protect our older population, and that makes sense, right? COVID's preying on that population who have a decreased immune system, have more metabolic dysfunction. But as we destroy our way of life, make people stay indoors more, make worse mental health situation, decrease our socialization, and make it more difficult for young people to learn how to communicate with each other, we don't emphasize healthy eating habits or lifestyle habits. Are we making a generation that is going to be even more susceptible to viruses like this? And are we just digging ourselves into a terrible, terrible situation where we're going to have to wear masks all the time, and we're going to have to social distance and live in the digital world simply because if we interact too much, these kids are going to die? I mean, it's a real worry.
I think that's a real possibility. I haven't really thought that far along, but wow, if you're so fragile, our immune systems could be that fragile, especially if we're going to change the whole food system and do plant-based foods, and just get rid of animal foods, get rid of sunlight, get rid of playing in the dirt, get rid of interacting. We could get that fragile.
I mean, and I know this might sound crazy to some, but I've always stood by this idea that as human beings, we thrive on interpersonal relationships, right? And you just I don't care what you believe. I get it. The future is tech. The future is digital, whatever. If you get rid of the interpersonal experience, the looking into someone's eye, reading body language, even, saying something weird, getting made fun of, learning how to adjust so that you don't get made fun of because there's social norms you have to follow, learning how to be polite, learning how to show your teeth sometimes, just all these little subtle social dynamics that do not come across on a screen or in some weird VR space. You're gonna take away what makes us human. And I don't know the mechanism of action, and maybe someone smart will, but it's gonna destroy our immune system because we're not gonna be building these natural skills, it just makes you thrive. You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, well, it's more than just the immune system. It doesn't.
More than-
I mean, everything else we listed will affect the immune system, but then it's what you're talking about is going to affect our social system and our society and everything else.
I think that the mental health...
Or mental health,
but
depressive.
I think that we know that a negative attitude, depression, bad mental state affects your immune system and affects your overall health. So I really think that we're messing up our natural interaction so much that the trickle-down effect is going to... And we've talked about this on all of our COVID episodes. The trickle-down effect already is disastrous. Look, I know we're here to talk about Africa, but, just in the last few weeks, I've had multiple young people come to me that have been multiple, not one, not two. I could think of 5 right now in the last, say, 4 weeks that have come to me that have been either hospitalized for a mental health, like psychosis or severe depression, suicidal ideas, have had an altercation with police or some kind of authority because they're like losing their mental like stamina and ability. And I hate to say I was right because it's devastating to watch, but what can you do when you take away jobs, you take away interpersonal skills, you emphasize everything to protect our older population, and people feel completely neglected? And these are people in their 20s and 30s.
It does connect to Africa because I saw the opposite, and the social community is amazing. And yes, you're not putting the old people in a home. You're with them every day, and they're still contributing to society. And we asked them about depression and mental health. Mary was very good about asking them all these questions, and they were like, "What are you talking about?"
Right.
They don't have
Did
words
they have
for it.
demented old people
No,
lying around
absolutely
in
not.
beds, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of old people in a building lying around, not able to tell you their name, with no purpose, with nothing to do, getting zero sunlight, drinking glucerna, losing their minds? You're saying you don't see that even in the poor Uganda? No?
None of that. None of that.
Sorry, I'm not making light of this, guys. I'm trying to emphasize the disastrous situation we find ourselves and that we're doing this to ourselves.
And we think it's normal. The problem is the normalization of it. We just think it's normal. That's another thing. She asked them these, quote, normal problems, ailments. Do you have pain? Do you have back pain? Do you have knee pain? Do you have menstrual pain? Do you have, are you tired? Can you not sleep? Do you have gut problems? All this stuff. They're like, no, no, no. So these are all the things people are just like, oh yeah, once you get to 30, you can't play sports as much, you get fat, you have stomach problem. Like, no, these people had none of that. Absolutely none of that.
And they expect to thrive into old age, right?
Of course. These people are contributing. Like in the Hadza, these guys were 60 going out on 22-kilometer hikes with us. I mean, they did longer. We did 22 kilometers. They kept going. Like these guys are still contributing to society. I'm telling you, the women were dancing. These ladies were jumping and stomping and dancing. The Batwa.
And it's not just the physical. Like dancing is the spiritual, emotional release that creates happiness, that releases joy in your mind, like hormones that promote joy, and that's life giving, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so ancestral. I love it. I feel like I just wish, I don't know if you're listening to this, like, are you envisioning these people in their 50s and 60s smiling, dancing, being excited about life with no screens in their face, not munching on food every 2 hours, but just in their environment with their families and friends, like embracing nature and embracing the world around them?
That's what life is. So every single group, they were very different, right? We went to the 2 different countries. We did about 8 different groups, maybe 4 or 5 main tribes, completely different people, right? they all had the foundational human things the same. They all had the same natural foods at their core. They all had dancing, they all had singing, and they had play, and they had old people part of the community, and they slept well. It was all these basic things. It's like, what is the sapient diet and lifestyle? Well, we just described it. It's natural foods, getting outdoors, mental, all the things they did.
Yeah, I mean, I think that. Go ahead.
Well, just the singing and dancing part, especially. Like every group had they want to share their song and dance with you, and it wasn't like a tourist thing. I mean, maybe there were like some. I mean, I could see how some of it was, oh, the tourists are here, let's do this, but then some of it was not. Like we got beyond that, right? We stayed with them for days.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely part of their culture. And by the way, it's part of our culture. Like, I think one of the things that also hurts so many young people is, we live in this bizarro world where we overwork ourselves, overstress ourselves. And over the last, 2 decades, these sort of tribal community music art-based events have popped up all over America and really over the world. Things like Coachella and Burning Man and these music festivals. And, when they were coming up, so much heat was put on, oh, these are just kids going out and doing drugs. No, they're not. These are people connecting with like-minded people, embracing art, embracing life, sharing love, sharing emotions, doing it just because you trust each other, that you're in this environment. And I think that it's so important now to the mental health and the overall healthy psyche of our population to have events like that. And the fact that everything got canceled during COVID contributes so much to the mental debacle we see. So I do think that it's just very, very primal and ancestral to want to embrace and share art and love, and that even using psychedelics and certain substances to amplify that experience, it shouldn't be vilified. It should be looked at as tapping into our ancestry in a world that is so a polar opposite to how we evolved.
100%. It's coming together for me more because I didn't understand why I liked going to Coachella or why it's so popular. It's because you're being human again. Mm-hmm. This is what it brings you back. Camping too. People are like, oh man, I felt so great. Like I unplugged, I went camping, I blah, blah, blah. It's because you just got to be a human again. Like these are the experiences that just take you back, like you said, to what our genes want. And this is how we thrive. And I don't know what the solution is though to modern society, right? We have to live in somewhat of a modern society, but I guess we can just accept and promote and embrace getting out and doing it more often and going to a music festival and going to a retreat and going camping or even just going outside for an hour and laying in the grass and getting some sun.
It's simple and it's cheap and it's free.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's life-giving. So a lot of the stuff that me and Brian grew up doing and loving that felt like, oh, we're like partying, we're in college, we were building a tribe of brothers when we were in a fraternity.
Yeah.
We were learning about art and music and entertainment when we would go to these like parties and
music
festivals. We would learn about self-sustainability when we would go camping. Like there's so many things that come from these activities, and I never thought about it when I was young. And now as we're older and we work more and our society drives further away from it, it's so important.
Wait, I have one more thing that I came to a realization about all of our most famous celebrities. What are these occupations? What do? They sing, they dance, they tell jokes.
Put on shows.
They play sports. Okay, these are the most ancestral things. These are the things that happen around the fire. These are things, and you know what I mean? Like these are our most famous, most looked up to people in the modern world. And it's no accident.
And I think that modern science is a beautiful thing. I mean, modern medicine, engineering, technological advancements have transformed our world for the better, no doubt. But I think that when you become too fixated on evidence-based medicine or scientific inquiry or the scientific method, when you replace ancestry, when you replace our instinctual desire, like our instinctual understanding of the world with evidence and science, like it's a religion, you lose the humanity in it. And I think that that's really the crux of what's destroying our healthcare and our overall health, is that we have become such science mongers. Like, you know, we're so proud of our science that we forgot that we weren't so bad before science. Mm-hmm. Yes, there was a lot of things that got us, trauma, infections, like, yes, like there's a lot of problems, and it's amazing that we figured out microbes and how to, you know, not die from a bacterial infection. It's not about that. It's about this idea that the real like beautiful thing of what you do as an engineer and I do as a doctor is we embrace everything we've learned, everything, all the charts and all the understanding of like the academia part of it, and we integrate it with what we feel. Because this stuff, you know, eating meat, going outside, you can talk about vitamin D studies and whether meat or this study or that. You know what you need. It's like when you get sick and you're craving like a broth or you're craving a piece of steak. Like, you don't crave a piece of broccoli. I'm sorry, you don't. You don't. Like, it's not like a thing. But it's what it is it's allowing yourself to be open enough to feel like what the world is giving you. And if you're too in the books and you're too like, unless I see evidence, unless I do the research, unless I find up someone who wrote about it on something, I won't believe it. If you get that dogmatic about scientific inquiry, you lose humanity. And I really worry that people in the nutrition space are stuck in that mental space. Physicians are stuck in that mental space. Certainly dietitians are stuck in like what they're taught and can't adapt. And again, this is all redundant, but the art of medicine is gone. And that's why you have engineers coming in, integrating feelings and art with science and bringing ideas, you know? And I wish that more of my colleagues would embrace, because I think they're there. They're just, you know, I think that ultimately they're scared to come out and be like, yes, I agree with this way of thinking, but it's going to go against the standard of care.
Well, the system's hard, yeah. But people who leave the system are figuring it out. And well, I was going to say, back to the studies and research, I find that people who rely on that, these people, they don't see patients. So the people who say, well, actually, it's just about calories, and actually this and this, and it's like, you've never worked with people. So I think people need to do both, or just realize that people like you that see patients every day have a different understanding of this. And back like to the Food Lies film, I always think about what went wrong. How do we get to this spot? How are we fat and sick? What, you know, part of the problem is we didn't understand the real life component of this. Like on paper, yeah, if you make a low fat diet based and say don't overeat, then technically people could lose weight and maybe the whole world would be skinny. But that's not the case. Proof is in the pudding. So we have to realize that on paper, it should have worked. I mean, you can do a low-fat diet and lose weight. You can do a high-fat diet and lose weight. We know this. But apparently, if you just tell people to do this low-fat diet and food pyramid, on paper, it should work. It didn't work. It was disastrous. It was the opposite of working. So, yes, people need to realize that humans aren't just a data table. And that's kind of what you're saying, right?
They're not a data table, and you can't mechanize everything. So another thought that was coming to my mind is, you know, this concept of a diet. Like, I'm on this diet. It's like, no, you have to understand food and nutrition. You have to understand what you're doing, and you have to be flexible. That's why ours is a diet and lifestyle, and it incorporates everyone. But you could also say the same thing about, like, let's say movement and exercise, right? There was such a like push, exercise decreases cardiovascular risk. Everyone go to the gym for 45 minutes, do like cardio, 20 minutes of cardio, 45 minutes of lifting biceps. You know, like, no, I always teach people movement. You can go on a freaking great hike for 10 kilometers and, you know, jump on a rock and see what that feels like and move around and hang off of a tree branch. And that's That's what you need. That's really what you need, not just sitting in the gym and pumping iron or getting on a treadmill and running. Like, it's more of again, back to our concept. I think it's our concept. I've never heard anyone say it, but ancestral hacking. Like, not biohacking is bypassing our biology and hacking into it with some kind of modern appliance or trick. There's no tricks here. It's lifestyle changes that mimic our ancestry, and not our ancestry of 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago, but of 50,000 years ago, right? That's the trick.
Well, camping is ancestral hacking. Going to Coachella is ancestral hacking, right? Yeah. Like, or just going to Africa. Like, my trip was basically an ancestral hack.
And so many people that struggle go on a trip. They go to, like in America, they'll go to Europe and spend a month in Europe backpacking, living off a few dollars a day, meeting people, seeing culture. That's an ancestral hack because that's what you have to do. You have to have interpersonal experience. You have to learn how other people live their life. You have to see what you can do on not a lot of money, what you can do with your mind and be creative and figure out how to feed yourself and clothe yourself and all this stuff. And it's not about having all the technology and having all the tricks and having your credit card to solve the problem. It's about using your brain, putting your ass on the line, risking yourself so that you can elevate yourself and understand yourself, the world, nature, and really be able to make a better, thoughtful decisions as you go forward in your life.
Well, I think you can do both. To put a cap on this topic, you can do both. You can live in the modern world, you can have a modern job, you can be a lawyer, and you could, do all that. And then you can live life like we're talking about. You can do both. You don't have to choose one or the other.
Yes. So back to Africa.
Yeah.
So, okay. This because I want to know. So you told me about this goat story. So what other dramatic food experiences can you tell me about? Because that is, I didn't want to only talk about food on this podcast. So, but now that we've talked about some other stuff, tell me like some of the crazy stuff. I heard some of the other folks you were on ate some crazy berries and may have not.
Oh yeah, Paul and Anthony. So
who's Paul and Anthony?
Paul Saldino and Anthony Gustin. So they're both live in Austin. Actually, I'm moving to Austin soon. I'll be seeing those guys. So they were supposed to come on the trip with us. They actually went early. They went with another guy to visit the Hadza, and they had like an insane journey. And you can listen to their episode about that. And
really good.
It was cool. So we overlapped for only one day, and they kind of got sick from the berries, and they kind of just did it all. Like they maxed out their Africa, experience, and so they decided to go home instead of continuing on with us, which is probably fine. I mean, because we actually ended up going with the same Hadza group. So we overlapped with them for a day. We saw them in Arusha, which is the city, kind of like the launch pad city. So cut to the Hadza. So we visited the same group as them. This was actually like kind of the touristy group of the Hadza. In Tanzania. And they see a lot of tourists come in and out. But then there's certain groups like us and Paul who stay and actually experience their life. And it's like a whole different experience and, do it for 3 to 4 days. So that's what we both did separately. And we, got to see how they really lived and hunt. And then we went on we did 8 hours. I think Paul and Anthony did 10 hours. They didn't have all the camera equipment and all the people we had. So we did 8-hour hunt with them just across the African plains and forests and up and down and the heat. We brought like 1 bottle of water. It was absurd. It was insane. I tried to bring as much, and people were like, no, we can't carry this water. It's too much. We ended up giving them some of the water because they don't even ever drink water. But if you give it to them, they'll drink it. It's not like they're going to turn it down. So we ended up giving them some. So we ended up with 1.5 bottles each for an 8-hour hike in the sun. And by the end, a couple guys almost got heat exhaustion and dehydration. Yeah, wow. It was getting bad at the end, and we all made it. And we got 2 bush babies on the hunt.
What's a bush baby?
It's this cute little Furby animal. It's really cute. It was really sad.
A rodent?
No, I think it's a marsupial type of thing. I don't know. I should have looked this up. It's a yeah, I don't know. It's a Furby.
How did they catch it?
They shot it. So they're so good. They see it in the tree, and they'll just shoot it through all the branches on the leaves and then get it. They get it like right in the head.
The BB?
No, they bow and arrows. So they make all their own bow and arrows. They have different arrows for each animal. So if it's just like a a little animal like that, they'll just use a sharpened stick. And they have a sharpened stick with a corn cob on it, so that the point of it is very short. So they kill birds with that, because you don't want to just pierce the bird into a million pieces. Then they have ones for baboons, and they have all these barbs in it. So when the baboon tries to take it out, it like rips them. And then they have ones for the bigger animals, like the dik-dik or the bigger like kudu that they get sometimes. And so there's a Datoga tribe that we visited.
What are tik-tiks and kudus?
They're types of antelope, like deer type of antelope. The tik-tik's a very small one. So we ate that. So, okay, I want to tell so many stories at once.
I know,
I'll quickly about the arrows. So they do have some metal arrowheads they trade for with the Datoga. So the Datoga are another tribe that, live amongst them. And they have this really ancient way of doing blacksmith work. And they have the, bellows?
Yeah.
And they like pump it. It's like a goat or a cow skin that pumps it and makes the fire hot. And they get scrap metal from around town and they make arrowheads and trade with them. So we ate the dik-dik. So they came back. This was the first day they showed up with a dik-dik. They were super happy. The guy shows up with it on his neck. He's carrying it.
I saw that picture.
Yeah, people were alarmed by that picture. I lost a lot of followers by posting like that picture and the Maasai, the blood when it hit the whatever. Okay, so they just
follow a carnivore guy and are upset that you killed an animal.
Ancestral people eating their food. But they opened it up. They started slicing it off. Again, there's guts over everything. There's green and yellows and all this stuff on their knives. And they're just handing it to me. And I eat it. And they're like, whoa, this guy ate it? Because usually they get the tourists who would never eat it. They're like, we're here to take photos and leave.
You're there to eat it.
I'm there to eat it. So they were very stoked. Mary ate it. They cut it up. They give the guts to the dogs. They did the same thing. They put it on sticks by the fire. They roasted the head, which was crazy. So there's a kid who's maybe like 10 or 11 who is like one of the men now, and he went hunting with us, and he was the best. Like they did this. We were all using the bow and arrows, and they put it like 20 meters away, and the kid just nailed it, like this little water bottle. So he took the head and was roasting the head, and then he like kind of score it and then roast it again, and then he was just tearing into it, just gnawing on it. Then they'd open up the skull, and we scooped out the brains and ate it. And it was really good. Like it was pudding kind of.
Yeah.
It was just this.
It was cooked, right?
Yeah, cooked brains. It's like very mild. And I thought it was great. And I heard on Paul and Anthony's show, they were talking about eating. They got a baboon and they ate the baboon brain, and the baboon. That sounds bad to me. That sounds bad because the second day when we did the 8-hour hunt, they kept going. They came home with a big baboon. I think they had two, a smaller one, so they ate the small one that night. And the next day, the third day, we showed up and they had the baboon, and they waited for us to slice it open, and it was gross. It smelled terrible. This was like a human-like creature with little hands.
This is where it gets weird.
I'm not trying to eat that.
Yeah.
And it smelled bad. Like it smelled like something different. You know what I mean? Like some human-like stuff. And there's flies everywhere. And we politely declined eating any of the baboon. So,
wow. I get it. I mean, I don't know. That's a big one. It's a big one.
But I don't know. So anyway, this group was really cool. We spent a long time. They sang for like we were just hanging out with them. Like, what do you even do?
Yeah.
You just they just brought out these little weird instruments that they made by hand and started singing.
Do you have pictures of that? I got to see these.
I want to share the song. Maybe we could patch in the song. It was a cool song. They just hang out. Actually, it's weird. They smoke a lot of weed and tobacco.
Yeah.
So their life.
That's an influence of the modern Western world, though.
It is, and their life is very relaxed. It's a very interesting life. So they go on. They'll just do an 8-hour hunt, or they chillax.
Yeah.
It's like chillax, smoke weed, hang out by the fire, sing, just seriously, just like lounge. Like it's just a complete vacation. And then it's like time to go. They all jump up and run and
how
just
often
go.
are they hunting?
Every day. And they're, so another thing that was surprising, you read about these studies in the Hadza, like, oh man, they eat 65 types of vegetation and their microbiome is so good and they eat so much fiber. None of that. Did not see any of that. But again, we were only there for 3 days. And maybe they secretly had a stash of 65 plants they were eating.
They didn't want to show you because they
didn't
knew
want
that
to
you were
show
a
it.
carnivore type guy, and they're like, "Oh, I want to support this guy's film by only showing."
They
it to me."
followed me on Instagram and they knew. No, they had no idea who we were and what we cared about. And all they ate was meat.
Did you feel like, and you kind of echoed this, but did you feel like because you were there to sort of embrace that part of their culture and that so many people that probably visit are just like looky-loos, did you feel like they embraced you more because you were down?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they did that with Paul and Anthony as well, because they went with this guy, Eric, who's like very experienced and knows them well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like we definitely got the real picture, but we also don't know what they would have done when we weren't around. Maybe they would have shared it with the women. Maybe they wouldn't have shared anything with the women. And, the women, so the women were eating the pumpkin leaves I mentioned earlier, but they actually take out some of the fibrous parts too. But so the only foods I saw were tubers, just one type of tuber. This group didn't even have them. The second group is the one that had the tubers, the pumpkin leaves, and meat. So, and this was during the rainy season. So, I mean, we only visited 2 groups. So maybe there's other groups that eat 1,000 type, eat the rainbow.
Yeah.
But I didn't see that. I didn't see that was possible.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense. Like they didn't have that.
Sounds like a fairy tale
It is.
sold to us by vegans.
It is. People see what they want to see. I mean, maybe there's some, scientists that went there 20 years ago and they came during a time, or maybe they asked them, show us every plant that you.
Well, I mean, there's that famous story of
Burkett?
Burkett who goes to Tanzania and sees them eating all that fiber and sees their like big fluffy poops and comes back and tells everyone to eat fiber because that's the healthy thing to do.
Yeah.
And that's the root of our fiber recommendations. But you didn't see that?
No, they didn't. No, they didn't have that. The second group was eating more of these roots, like cassava or something, and they take off the fiber, then they chew on the middle part, and then they spit out the fiber. And I had some. It was decent. It tasted like mildly sweet, but I didn't eat any fiber. They gave me a little chunk of it. I chewed on it and I spelled the fiber. I got 0 fiber from that.
I'm curious, and this is like less about the tribe, but you're with the tribe most of the time. When you're not with the tribe, is there a place for you to go eat? Is there like a market?
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know what I mean?
This is what I had no idea.
Yeah,
I went into this blind. Mary planned it all. No, we had all different camps and sites, and we even got a hotel one night. There's all kinds of different accommodations.
Cities.
Yeah. So we did stay in tents, a few times, and we had a personal chef. It was really cool, like personal chef. But I mean, it was a guy that just had a few pots and would make us goat. It was funny because the first day they always give us an array of fruit and all kinds of like starches and this and that. And we're just like, you just give us the meat. You don't need to give us all this other stuff. We don't really need this stuff. But we trained him up. He loved it. He loved cooking for us and got us a bunch of avocado and tons of meat. The different chicken, fish, goat. Yeah, it was great.
Cool.
So yeah, we had some sort of normal places to live and rest. It's good to just rest and recuperate.
You're physically, mentally not built for this climate and environment, right? Like you're going there. Sure, you're excited about it, but if you're just like with the tribe for 7 days, you're not going to do so well.
It'd be rough. Yeah, I can't imagine. I was thinking, man, they are actually living in this cave and in this straw like grass hut, and this is not a joke. This is not for show.
Yeah,
this is where they live.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
I have a question. So, you didn't mention it. Do they eat mushrooms? Is that a place where they have mushrooms?
So
I'm just a big fan of mushrooms.
Yeah, well, yeah. Mary was really interested in the mushrooms too. So at the end of our 8-hour hunt, there was the older man took us home, and while everyone's running for water, we each chugged 3 bottles of water as soon as we got back, and we noticed the guy go pick these big mushrooms. So they had these big mushrooms. Wow. Yeah,
he picked them.
Yeah, they were on the ground. Yeah, so right when we got to our safari vehicle, he found them, and we have a picture of him like holding these giant mushrooms. So I don't know what kind they were, but they do go and know certain plants. I mean, they have bushweed. They know about all the plants. Obviously, this is all they do is know about these plants. So they do the mushrooms.
Was the mushroom a food or a medicine?
Well, this specific one seems like a food because it was so big. but I believe Mary asked, she always asks them about plant medicines because she's into the herbs and stuff. And every single culture used different plant medicines as medicinal properties.
So speaking of which,
I got to try that. I know what you're gonna say. I got to try the brain fuel actually for the first time.
So
This is
we, as a company, Sapien, have been really excited to kind of create a product that we're excited about. And this for sure, and I want to just be open about it, inspired by Onnit and their Alpha Brain. It's a product that I've used for years and years and years. I love it. Alpha Brain is a combination of different adaptogenic mushrooms, and it's a great cognitive enhancer. We recently did a podcast and got to know this really brilliant natural healer named Nassim, and he's got a company called Immunity Herbals. And we work with him to develop our first product, a nootropic that we call Brain Fuel.
Brain fuel.
And this is really our first time ever talking about it and announcing it. We've had it for a couple weeks now. I was able to try a very similar product that he already sells, and I used it for some time, and it was excellent. Very, very similar to Alpha Brain. It's a lion's mane based product that includes L-theanine and a number of other natural herbs that are cognitive enhancers.
There's a lot of them. Wow, there's like
it's
15
amazing.
different things other than the lion's mane.
It's amazing. It's powerful stuff. Other fun things about it that I've learned as I've been kind of playing with it is a lot of the products are wild crafted. So there's sort of 3 different ways you can get herbs and mushrooms into your supplements. There's bioavailable, organic, and wild crafted. Bioavailable is actually synthetic. It's like a processed version of whatever it is that is thought to absorb better. Organic is obviously grown in organic environment. And then wild crafted is this really cool concept where they go into the wild, find that herb or mushroom, pick it, harvest it, and there you go. And that's something Nassim's really proud of because that is the most potent and powerful and natural form of a lot of these products. So we have our first nootropic, a lion's mane-based cognitive enhancer, which is a mushroom, a powerful ancient mushroom. I think this stuff is incredible. I've been using it. I don't use it every day. I use it on days where I really have to perform. I took one today, firing on all cylinders. What are you thinking about it?
I feel like fired up. I feel like awake and my brain's just working. So, no, I'm happy about this because,
you've used other nootropics, right?
I went to Onnit in Austin and I got a hold of some of that
Alpha Brain
2 years ago, and I thought it was great. So I'm glad we're doing our own. Do we have Sapien.store up yet?
It should be up in the next couple weeks. We're going to start an e-commerce store, Sapien.store. We're going to share some of our products, but there's also other products. Like I'm talking to the folks from Element. I love the the
LMNT. Yeah.
LMNT.
They call it Element, but for people who see it drawn out, Rob Wolf makes it. Yeah, he sent me a bunch. I love that stuff. I love packets. Yeah.
And our idea is just to create a place where we can share things that we love. And we have a product, basically a very, very high quality vitamin D3 K2 product that we should have here in the next few weeks. And, this is about sharing with our community what we love, what we do. I use supplements, herbs, minerals every day. It's changed my life over the last 3-4 years as I started adding them to my diet and leveraging them.
I have a good little tidbit about that because I'm not into all that stuff. So this may be surprising to people. It's like, oh, I thought you guys were into the whole foods, Sapien whole foods. Like, well, it doesn't always work in modern society. And this big new thing that I heard about for years, and I just saw a video about someone else talking about it, is because of the changing amount of CO2 in the environment, whether I'm not talking about global warming or whether it's man-made or not, doesn't matter. There's way more CO2 now. And what that does is that provides way more energy for plants. So now plants can grow bigger and faster and have more energy. So plants are the foundation of our nutrition, right? Because then other animals eat those plants and we eat the animals or we eat the plants directly. But all the nutrients either come from the energy nutrients come from the sun and photosynthesis, and the minerals and vitamins come from the soil, right? So people also know that the soil's been depleted. So there's multiple reasons. So this is interesting because I just thought it was depleted because we do monocropping, which is one reason. And we just we try to stuff in like fossil fuel based fertilizers, which is bad. And then, but another big reason is that CO2 thing is because there's so much CO2, it's just changing the ratio, right? It's changing the balance. And so there's less minerals and vitamins from the soil and just more energy. That's why all our plants are just big and juicy and sugary and giant. So
they're energy, they're not nutrient.
Yeah, there's a ratio. All foods have a nutrient to energy ratio. And it's just tipping in the wrong direction. So that's my long-winded spiel to say that you might need to supplement. Not everyone needs to supplement. If you're like really diligent, maybe you don't need to supplement.
This is something I say every day to people because I hear this a lot. There's two things. Our food system is destroyed. It's not broken. It's completely destroyed. Our plants are less nutritious. By the time they make it to our stores, they're certainly less nutritious. So obviously, if you're growing it in your backyard or you're going to local farmers that do everything right, it's totally different. So what our supplementation is a food supplement. It's a food system supplement. Magnesium,
D3, K2.
D3, K2. People are like, well, just go in the sun. Well, I got a job. I got a lot of jobs. I'm really busy. I cannot go in the middle of the day. 90% of the days, I wish I could. I just can't. I'm not a millionaire. I don't have a lot of money. I have to work every day. I have patients that rely on me. I'm there all day. So I can't go in the sun. So yes, I supplement. And so I think it's very, very myopic when people are aggressive in our community to people that supplement. Hey, you should just eat liver every day. You should just do this. Like, hey, everyone lives a different life. It's 2021. That's the whole point of Sapien. It's not an ideology. It's not a dogma. It's an understanding of what the hell is going on around us and all of us adapting to it in different ways. If you've got the resources and time to eat all your grass-fed meat, go procure all your vegetables locally, support all your farmers, cook all your food, spend time in the sun. If you have that ability, you probably don't need a supplement. But for me, and the abnormally bizarre life that I live as a physician in 2021, I have to supplement, and I do it thoughtfully. And so that's one. And then the two is plants and minerals and all these things can be used to even elevate yourself and thrive even more, right? So when we're talking about a lion's mane, so like, no, you don't need it, but we've, for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, used herbs and mushrooms and food products and this to thrive and excel ourselves and be even more sharp and be even more powerful. So yeah, it's okay to supplement. Sorry, I got triggered, but
I love it. No, I feel like we're being a little bit defensive, but I also think it's justified because I do have a whole thing about nose to tail, and it's all about whole foods, and a lot of our message is about whole foods. But we'll just throw this out there for the world that there is a balance, and that we are okay with supplementing in a smart way.
It's not about being dogmatic. Look, nose to tail concept of eating is like it's the heart of the kind of food system we're talking about. But that's not the food system we live in, right? Yeah. So I order from nose to tail all the time. I love it, right? But I can't cook it every day. I'm busy. I can't even cook dinner every day. I'm busy. I do my best. I have local restaurants that I know use healthy oils and healthy meat, and I frequent them because I'm busy. And so it's really important. This is so important. This is about real life and reality, not religious dogma and ideology. And that's why initially I was pretty resistant to the carnivore community because it felt super religious and dogmatic to me. Now, carnivore is a powerful dietary intervention. It is so great. It is such a powerful tool I use on a daily. But come on, it's not like the end-all be-all to understanding food. It's just another concept. It's an important concept. Keto, leveraging fat and minimizing carbs, is a concept. It's not a diet. Keto's not a diet, everyone. That's not a diet.
People have made it into an obsession. Yeah.
So just really quick, public announcement. Keto's not a diet. Carnivore is not a forever diet either. Being in ketosis forever is not a good idea. Understanding our food system, understanding your body's need for nutrients, fuel, vitamins, protein, understanding that everyone's different and lives different lives and have different nutrient, protein, and demands, body, physical and demands. That's the money here. And having a system like Brian's, that's why I love that graphic, that infographic you
Sapien
created.
framework. Well, it's the dietary landscape or
That is, if you guys, maybe we could post it.
sapien.org/diet.
It is so powerful because what it does is it shows you how we're all in the same boat, everyone. Yeah, you carnivores out there are in the same boat as my pescatarian patients. We're all trying to be healthy. And we're all trying to find something that makes sense with our modern world and with our understanding about nutrition and lifestyle. And let's all come together and get rid of seed oils. That's my
Refined foods. It's just refined energy. That's the key to life, is get rid of refined energy. So refined energy means fat or carbs. So refined carbs are sugars and flours, and refined fats are seed oils. It's very simple. Just minimize refined energy. MRE. MRE is minimize refined energy. The MRE diet. Well, the MRE is funny because it's a military like meal ready to eat. So it's like the two very opposites. The MRE diet could mean eating processed foods that last 10 years, or it could mean the theory of everything, which is minimize refined energy. Any good diet out there, I'm willing to bet, minimizes refined energy. Any good diet, I'm saying any healthy population, and I want to wrap this up with the Africa thing too, is they had wildly different diets than each other or us. Talking about the Hadza guys who were eating all meat that I saw. Talking about the Maasai that are eating blood, meat, and milk. Talking about the Ugandan people who rely on starchy bananas. These are not the sweet bananas, by the way. They're relying on the starchy
real
bananas. Yeah. And, carbs. But they're getting their animal foods when they can. But the thing they have in common is they're minimizing refined energy. And as soon as that refined energy comes in, like I'm talking about the cooking oils, things go wrong. And so my last closing idea was that in the West, people have this idea that they're like, oh, yeah, people get fat because of fast food. It's like, oh, yeah, it's just fast food. Don't eat sugar and candy and fast food, and you won't get fat. And it's not. People think that's the only way to get fat and sick. And for most people in the West, that is true. But these people in Uganda got gigantic without fast food. And that was surprising to me. I thought I was going to go there and see sugar and treats and soda and this stuff. That was not there. They were not consuming those products. They couldn't afford those products. They were, you could find them in a store. Yeah, if you did go to a store, they were there. But this is not what they're eating. And they have no fast food.
But the vegetable oil.
But exactly. So I'm saying it is crazy. And if you have the maize flour that has been detoxified and you bring in all these cooking oils, then you can get very metabolically damaged. And it's crazy. So I didn't know that. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know that.
You did, though. It was just, I think, shocking to see it.
Kind of, yeah. Well, I guess so. You're right. I kind of knew it inherently that these ingredients, the refined flour and the oil were that bad. But it was just surprising to see no fast food made it in, and that everyone seemed very fit until around 45. And then it caught up.
And by the way, we see that. That's what I see in clinic. Like I did a couple of consults this week of guys that are like early 40s, and they're just starting to pack on those extra few pounds. They're having some sexual dysfunction, which is alarming. They're achy, and they're just like, oh, I'm 40. I can't perform. And I'm just trying to have this conversation. I'm like, you can. You just have to treat your body with love and respect and understand that what you put into it is what you're going to get out. And again, I wonder how much of this MRE. Mm-hmm. No, MRE is the good diet. How much of this anti-MRE diet is reversible? This is like
the refined energy diet. Yeah,
the refined
well, just called the refined energy. Most people are on a refined energy diet. So the protein's always a good thing.
Yeah.
So really, we're talking about energy, and it's just the refined energy is bad. Just to break it down one more time, it's like you have the protein is good, then you have energy from whole food sources, which is good, from carbs or fats if you're eating whole foods. And then you have the refined energy, which is a bad thing. It's like good, necessary, bad.
And it's interesting. In America, you know, you have that, plus we have the one drug that is legal that everyone indulges, which is alcohol, which is super toxic, high in carbs. And I think you add even a casual alcohol habit to this refined energy diet, and by 45, people are struggling.
Oh, yeah.
Struggling. And it's not. That's not how we are evolved. We are not evolved to fall apart at 45, you know, sit around at 50 and be in a nursing home by 60 and 70. No, that is not normal.
We've evolved to be 90 and 120, dancing and stomping around. And that's what I saw.
And honestly, if we took the best of ancestral health concepts and mixed the real high quality components of Western medicine, like infectious management, like, you know, trauma care, I wonder how long we could really live.
Oh, yeah.
And we push those 130s.
I think so.
You know, once you understand ancestral hacking and you start, you know, leveraging the acute stressors of high intensity interval training and fasting and healthy sleep habits and
cold therapy
and heat therapy and all this stuff, deep breathing, all these things, how far can we take it, you know?
I say 140 easy. You listen to my podcast on Peak Human with Dr. Michael Rose. He's a longevity researcher. He's done tons of stuff for decades on this. But we got to wrap this up.
Guys, first of all, Brian, my guest today, thank you so much for telling us your story. What an amazing, life-changing trip I'm sure it was.
Oh, yeah. I've always wanted to come on the Sapien podcast. So this is really cool. Yeah, that's it. Go to sapien.org. Find out about all their stuff. We have the program. We got the tribe. We got some products now.
Soon, Sapien store coming soon. Probably by the time you're hearing it, it'll be up. You know, check me out, evolvehealthcare.com. I've got a ton of patients coming in from all around the country. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for reaching out to me. What a blessing. Check out Nose to Tail. We talked about it. Nosetotale.org. We talked about it today. What a great source of, you know, real healthy animal products and other great products like your new seasonings and body butter or whatever you call it.
Body care, skin food.
Skin food. I love it all, Brian. Thank you. Let's do this again. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Take care.